The rotor had barely spooled down when the wind started sawing at the airframe like a dull blade. Grit worked under my collar and crunched between my teeth. I unbuckled the litter straps and steadied the patient while Harper eased the rotor brake and Brooks kicked the deck lights on. Night, the color of rust pooled over the flight line. The smell was JP8, sweat, and damp gauze, the kind of cocktail only people who live around helicopters ever call familiar. The man on the litter still trembled, eyes flicking like he was searching for a spot on Earth without desert. I soothed him, took his pulse again, and wrote a quick line on the tag BP drop post-injection suspected reaction. When the cabin door slid shut, a hot needle yanked across my lower back pain, streaking up the spine. I swallowed the sound it wanted and promised myself a bag of ice in the hangar. The storm had been mean tonight, headings skittering, the bird floating like a wooden skiff. Me draped across the patient to guard the airway. As Brooks ran the litter down the rails, something rattled underfoot, a plastic syringe, green cap, sand stuck to the barrel. I bent to grab it, but Brooks was faster. "Got it," he said, dropping it into a red bio bag. In the corridor light, I caught a faint logo on the torn label too, stylized helixes. Helixara. My brow nodded, and then the hangar door slammed, and the wind cut off like someone flipped the storm's breaker. The hangar's artificial quiet made me float. Harper rapped his knuckles on the fuselage, his good luck ritual after a rough ride. "Good work," he said, meeting my eyes long enough to let me know he'd seen the way I shielded the patient through the shake. "Go get that back," looked at Marshall. I nodded and stripped my gloves. Across the taxiway, a red beacon pulsed steady as a post-shock heartbeat. Brooks hauled canvas and reset the berth. "That syringe, was it his?" I asked. "No idea. It was under the bag when we loaded," he said, glancing toward the side door. "But it looked familiar. Could be from one of those compassionate use kits." Before I could answer, a pair of glossy heels stepped past the safety line, so wrong against oil-stained concrete it felt like a punchline. Sloan. Ivory coat, hair in a tight knot, expensive perfume smothering the JP8. She didn't wait for me to speak or even glance at the flight badge on my chest. "I'll be quick," she said, PR voice polished flat as glass. "On this run, don't list the drug. Just put unknown complication. Someone else will handle the rest. In return, I'll cover a full civilian flight school package and line up the network for when you're done playing Army." Somewhere down the ramp, another rotor spun up. Wind skittered back in, reminding me this was a military flight line, not her conference room. "He crashed right after the injection," I said, slow on purpose. "If it's a reaction, I'm obligated to say so." Sloan smiled without warmth. "Think bigger. One word can burn down a future. Our family can't afford a medical scandal right now. You want altitude, or you want to be a nameless hero?" Harper drifted closer, casual, stopping just where half a step would put him between us. He didn't say a thing, but his presence felt like a line of concertina, soft, warning, hard edge. Sloan measured him, softened her tone, and aimed at me again. "Aaron, I'm trying to protect you. We have an NDA. You sign, and by tomorrow this all goes away." "Goes away" rolled across the concrete like a cold marble. I flashed on a gala photo from years ago, me nudged to the frame's edge so a sponsor logo could land dead center. I'd been quiet then, standing in a bay that still smelled like a stranger's breath, salt and metal in my mouth. The rasp of his breathing still stuck in my headset. I knew I wasn't living for a logo anymore. "I'm filing the report as it happened," I said. Sloane's gaze flicked around, calculating cameras. "Sleep on it. I'll come back in the morning. If you're still stubborn, don't call me." Her heels tapped away thin, sharp. Verdict. Brooks peeked over the canvas, snorted. "Power move." "Who was that?" "My sister." I exhaled. "PR. Ah. PR explains." He winked. "We'll keep the log clean. And that syringe. I'll push it through medical waste like it says on the tin." I crossed into tools, grabbed an ice wrap, and pressed it to my back until the cold chewed through skin into muscle. A white coat flashed Major Lopez from the aid station, gloves still on. "Sit. Let me see." I folded forward, her thumb traced the bruise line. "Harness mark," she said, tapping her pen on the clipboard. "Not a random fall. Sick call in the morning, X-ray. And Marshall, the flight report needs to be right." I don't read brochures for a living. I smiled because that was safer than crying. Yes, ma'am. When I got back to the table, Harper had the binder open to preliminary flight incident report. The fluorescent light made the paper glare, the tiny font jitter. I picked up the pen. Those empty boxes wanted a whole storm explained in cold type. I wrote suspected adverse reaction on purpose, then filled in time grid patient condition. Brooks set a paper cup by my hand. Watch your penmanship, he said, grinning. I signed. The blue ink dried and left the odd sensation of latching a door I'd been closing for years. At the edge of a stainless tray, a ragged label chip clung, gritty with sand. The helix icon was scratched almost to silver. I thought about Sloane's offer to make things go away and about the man from the litter now somewhere under bright lights, hollows under his eyes. Harper slid the paperwork into a plastic sleeve and said, just above the hum of the hangar, CID will swing by tomorrow. I nodded. Outside, the wind was winding up again, like the desert was debating a second round. I zipped my flight suit to the throat and hugged the clipboard in. Some nights your whole life hangs on a single line of ink. Tonight I chose the line that kept faith with the truth, even if the sand ground down every tooth I owned. Morning on post smelled like scorched coffee and chalk dust from the PT fields. I cut past the DFA AC, pans clanging a thin, tinny music, and the stab in my back reminded me last night hadn't been a dream. At sick call, I took a clipboard and a plastic chair, facing a crooked poster that read report what you SEE. The slogan hit like a yellow taxiway stripe loud, unapologetic. I closed my eyes for one beat and the past turned on. Ballroom lights poured down like honey that night. I was 16, hidden behind a vinyl backdrop printed with sponsor logos, hugging a bouquet of plastic roses tied in glitter ribbon. Sloane wore a black backless dress and lived under the rapid-fire crack of camera shutters. Mom edged me a half step farther from the banner. Make room for the signage, sweetie. Hug the border, okay? I smiled like a good kid while the lenses swung like a school of fish. Dad joked into the mic, 2 daughters, one born for the camera, one born to put out fires if anybody needs it. The room laughed. I did too. But the laugh left me alone at the backdrop's wrinkled seam where the adhesive bubbled up like a pimple. After the gala came a late dinner. I tried to talk about the JROTC drills at school and how I wanted to enlist after graduation. Mom set her fork down so softly. You could mistake it for approval. Sloane never looked up from her phone. The Army's a phase, she said. You'll grow up and learn the real world happens at this table, not out there. I remember the heavy quiet, the air conditioning hissing, the smell of steak and refrigerated roses, and the server's practiced invisibility as he drifted away. On the BBQ day I shipped out, sun poured over our backyard like it had money in it. Dad cranked country. The business club uncles offered congratulations shaped like leashes, so proud. Couple years she'll be doing PR for Sloane's company? I wore the company tee from my training platoon, salt drying white across my back. I told Sloane I'd been slotted for MEDEVAC medical training, staring at her like a new horizon. She touched the badge I just earned. Cute, she said, like costume jewelry but on trend. Grease snapped on the grill. Somewhere, inside my head, a door closed so gently no fork on the table so much as trembled. Aunt Me was the only one who didn't smile small. She sat at the porch edge, hands marked by those faint latex grooves, and laid them on my knees. Go, she said. Where you stand, somebody's breath will come easier. She's a clinic nurse out on the scruffy edge of town, and the sound of her turning paper charts is still the softest sound I know. She has this habit of flagging important pages with yellow stickies, her handwriting neat as block print. That year she tucked one that just said save. I didn't get it then. Later I learned save meant a metal box in her closet. The coffee splashed notes on a drug reaction from years back, the company name embossed at the corner like a shadow across a patient's spine. The present yanked me back, literal ice in a bag chewing at my lower back, the Helix logo from last night still burning behind my eyes. My phone jumped. An unknown number flashed like a silver fish. Don't list the drug. Curious people have disappeared. No name. No avatar. Just a timestamp and the feeling of eyes behind me. Sloane's heels on concrete replayed in my head, and her line "this all goes away" hit the floor with a cold clack. In the sick call waiting area, a young soldier needed a swollen ankle. "You the flight medic," he whispered. "I've seen you on the line," I nodded. He grinned and leaned in. "You gonna tell me what happened last night?" I let the air out slow. "Log what you actually see," I said. "The rest goes to the people with jurisdiction," he answered Roger, like a kid trying on a uniform. And my own words bounced back, aimed not at him, but at 16-year-old me at the edge of that backdrop, right it straight, even when nobody wants to hear it. I left the clinic and ducked into the little church by the side gate. Door cracked, warm pine smell, star-colored glass tossing gentle blue on the pews. I knelt third row and didn't ask for miracles, just for a through line. In this country, people talk about that red thread that ties a life together. I wanted mine to run clean through the dust storm night, past any manicured PR hand, across every press packet, and end where it should, next to a litter where somebody gets one more breath. My phone buzzed. "Aunt Me, you okay?" Her voice was a warm towel. I gave her the short version and left out the back pain. She paused. "Then I've got something for you." An old file. Might help, might not. It kept me up back then. I sat up straighter and watched a rectangle of light inch across the floorboards. What kind of file? A patient of mine was in a compassionate use program. There was an event. Then a man came and told me not to list the drug. I didn't delete it. I kept it. My heart thumped slow and heavy like a rotor coming off power. "You kept it for me?" "I kept it for the truth," she said, "and because I knew someday it would need to walk out of that tin box." Driving back, hot wind slapped my face and noon hung like chalk in the sky. I thought of gala photos, of my badge being called jewelry, of backyard well-wishers lashing girls to pretty boxes with ribbons. Turns out I'd always been posed at the edge of the frame, only now I'd learned to step out of it and head straight for the flight line, where JP-8 smells as honest as it gets. At the gate, a guard asked if I needed a ride to X-ray. I hitched my own bag higher, harness ache biting clean. "I'm good. I'll walk." The clinic's glass door slid open and a cold sheet of air spilled out. In a greasy steel panel, I caught my reflection hair knotted tight, a bruise stippling my jaw, eyes tired but not red. Sloane's polished phrases flashed in my head, then Aunt Me's yellow stickies with save. Then the man from last night, and that sand-gridded helix scar. They looked like waypoints on a sectional. I palmed the door and pushed in. Before it shut behind me, the phone pinged again, an email. Subject line, "Only for your safety." Inside was a grainy photo of a memo with helix at the top and heavy black bars through the meat of it. No reply to, no return path. I don't know who's on my side. I don't even know if they're clean. I only know this time. I'm standing in the center of the frame. Texas sun poured over the ramp, flashing off the nose of the bird like a hot mirror. I hugged a stack of medical files and followed the yellow lead-in lines toward maintenance. My back was a shield. Every breath felt like a small blade sliding between ribs. Major Lopez was waiting in the aid station, blouse half open, stethoscope slung like a lanyard. "Sit," she said. No bark, no sugar, just the tone of someone who's dealt with 100 aviators pretending they're fine when they're not. Her fingers tracked my spine, pressed along the slanted bruise. "Harness mark," she said, pen ticking the clipboard. "Matches your description, holding a patient's airway through heavy shake. No evidence of a random fall. Ground you for monitoring." I swallowed my protest. Being non-mission sucks for people wired like me, but facts don't care. Lopez met my eyes. "One more thing, a civilian in the technical area last night, correct?" I blinked. "Yes, my sister. She's PR for Helix. I didn't ask for her resume." Lopez cut in. "I asked why she was there. And hear me, any attempt to influence a flight report goes to CID. Tracking specialist." "Tracking, ma'am." The door kicked open. Harper leaned in, flight suit dark with sweat. He set a black USB on the steel table with a sound like a period. "FDR pull from last night. Maintenance gave me a copy. Master stays sealed." Lopez nodded, slid the drive into an evidence pouch, signed the seal, slapped on a red tab. "Call Sid." Her sentence drew a chalk line between two worlds on one side, ops on the other, the process every soldier dreads but needs. In the hall, Brooks was polishing his visor, shoulders bouncing to a tinny country song from an old radio. He lowered his voice when he saw me. "Hey, I duped the intercom audio to a card just in case." He pressed a brown envelope into my palm wafer thin. "You didn't get this, didn't hear this, didn't see this." He winked. "We'll route it proper when CID asks." I pinched the corner, grateful for that flight line brand of practical kindness. Things this thin can carry a whole story's life. 2 plainclothes men came in, one tall, one stocky, dragging office air into a noon furnace. The tall one flashed a badge. Special Agent Parker, Criminal Investigation Division. His eyes swept the room, landing on the sealed FDR pouch, Lopez's clipboard, me sitting bolt upright like I was in a sim. "Specialist Marshall, thank you for an honest report." The word honest floated out light as paper and hit the floor heavy as lead. Parker started with pressure check questions exact time. The vitals crashed. The precise words I said on the intercom, what med was administered, who was in the cabin, who touched the gear. I answered slow, let memory run without adding sugar or scraping off salt. When I got to the syringe, Brooks cleared his throat. I picked it up, tossed it in a red bio bag, then locked the bin. Label might still be there. Parker wrote, then asked us to take him to medical waste. We walked past rows of plastic, the air hot as an open oven. In the bin room, he gloved up, found the sealed container, lifted out a red bag. Brooks pointed. A torn label with the twin helix mark flashed under dust. I didn't say a word. The sound of Parker's pen on the form felt like nails kissing a lid. Back in the aid station, Parker asked to play the intercom audio. We slid the card into Lopez's laptop. Rotor hum. My voice, possible drug reaction, BP dropping. Then Harper, even prepare for emergency landing. Parker didn't flinch. He requested a copy, logged the timestamps, and packed everything into a thick evidence satchel heavy, like an MRE you don't want but need. "Next," he said, finally looking at us instead of the paper, "we collect statements and match against the FDR in analysis. Specialist, we also have a complaint of outside interference with your report. We'll handle that separately." The word complaint made my back tighten again. Sloan is a different kind of storm, no sand, lots of budget. Parker continued, "Because this involves a pharmaceutical product, a portion may go to the Inspector General. In the meantime, you're temporarily non-mission. Standard. Lopez cut and dry, I've already grounded her. She needs the back monitored." Harper set a hand on my chair, casual, steady. "I confirm Specialist Marshall's report matches what I observed from the cockpit. No one touches a period." Parker nodded, like marking a moral anchor in the crew, then asked for our signatures on the evidence handoff. When the last shreds of paper slid into his case, Parker asked, "Anyone not on the roster on the flight line last night?" The room shrank. Disinfectant and JP8 jammed together in my throat. "Yes, my sister. Name, Sloan Marshall. Family, civilian PR. Purpose." The question hung like a grenade with the pin already out. I looked at Lopez. She shrugged like, "Say it, soldier." She asked me to change suspected adverse reaction to unknown complication in exchange for career help. Parker's pen stopped, left a perfect black dot. He closed the book. Understood. In the corridor, Harper matched my stride through streaks of oil that glittered under the lights. "Don't punish yourself for non-mission," he said low. "This isn't white flag time. It's how you keep the aircraft in the sky." I smirked. I hate being ground-bound. "Everybody does," Brooks called, appearing from behind a tool chest with a cup of ice. "But there's groundwork, like submitting that audio through the front door before someone tidies up. I'll walk you." The two of them flanked me back to admin. Our boots echoed, clean and regular, a metronome for military life report, evidence, signature. In a little office with a faded safety poster and a flag on the wall, I filled out the form, sealed the card in a tamper pouch. A junior officer in S3 stamped it. Curious eyes kept properly polite. "Specialist Marshall," there's talk. He trailed off. I cut him off with a tired smile. "Rumors outrun a UH-60. But the FDR doesn't lie." Hearing myself say it, I knew the phrase would cling to me the way JP8 clings to a flight suit. Outside, the hot wind slapped again, but breathing got easier. The corridor to the ramp ran straight at the end. Glass framed our aircraft, sprawled like a beast sleeping off a hunt. Parker and his partner crossed the apron with a heavy evidence bag. Inside it, a torn label, a slice of rotor noise, and a dust storm night converted into paper. I touched the wrap at my back. The chill had faded, but Lopez's words were still printed somewhere on skin. The report has to be right. "See Eddie's back tomorrow," Brooks said, shrugging like a man on a first-name basis with red tape. Harper nodded at me. "You're grounded, not gone. You're still crew. Stand your ground." Out the glass, heat shimmered, birds sketched lazy arcs, people moved like punctuation across a very long report. I didn't know if the next step would land me in a glass-walled conference room or a public hearing. I only knew that today we'd laid the first brick with the only material that holds truth. Back at the barracks, my phone buzzed. "Unknown number, don't list the drug." Curious people have disappeared. I froze between the rows of lockers shining like a color guard. I deleted it, opened notes, and typed out every time stamp and detail I could recall. If someone wanted this story to vanish, I'd do the opposite, lock it into words, and hand it to people who don't scare easy. My back still hurt. I was still non-mission. But inside my head, the rotor had already spooled up, promising that one day I'd take it skyward with my own hands. The data room tucked behind the hangar was freezer cold, the AC cranked to keep a bank of black boxes humming. On the screens, numbers marched in clean little ranks. The fans purred rotor noise trapped in a bottle. "Here," the tech said, tapping a graph. "Vitals nosed. I've right after the timestamp that lines up with the injection. The FDR shows airframe shake. The medical side relies on your intercom and written report." I watched the curve drop, then drag itself back up like a snake trying to rise with a broken spine. In the intercom audio, my voice came back flat and steady, possible drug reaction, BP dropping. No tremble, no heroics, just words, pushed out of lungs full of grit. FDR and audio looked at each other and nodded. Harper stood arms folded, drumming a quiet rhythm like he was setting a checklist. Brooks leaned on a metal cabinet, eyes on the tech-burning copies. We signed the evidence seals. Toby the tech cupped a hand over his eyes and grinned. Black boxes hate talking by themselves. They prefer a friend. "Their friend today is the truth," Harper said, voice level as a runway. I stepped outside to take Aunt Me's call. "Got a minute? I'm at the side gate." 10 minutes later, her silver sedan pulled up, her nurse's tote frayed at the corners. Under the overhang, she laid out a few file sleeves and an old phone. "Not sure this helps, but years back a young doc emailed me about side effects that sound a lot like last night." She opened the photo roll, a prescription shot on a dinosaur camera, blurry, blown out, but you could read the active ingredient, same one as the twin helix logo on last night's syringe. Another email, a burner address signed with a single initial, asking about a hypotensive crash after a compassionate use dose. My neck went cold. "Remember that silver brochure they handed out at the county health fair?" she said, unfolding a Helixara handout, edges tacky with old tape. Back page, a QR code and the line, "Compassionate access because every life deserves a chance." I scanned it. The browser popped to a page of polished disclaimers, as slick as a ballroom floor after the mop. No clinical data, just a belt of promises. "A side door," Me said. "That lets a drug slip into life wearing a new hat." She didn't say cover up, but the word leaned on the doorframe anyway. I thanked her, photographed everything, asked to keep copies. She studied me like a kid trying to sprint across 6 lanes of traffic. "You're stubborn in the right places," she said. "Stubborn needs armor. Stay inside the rules." I hugged her, breathing in talc and the cheap lily scent she loves. Some embraces teach you still have a family, just a different one than the sort that trades truth for shine. I barely had time to file the documents before Sloane materialized, like trouble pinged her by Bluetooth. Pencil skirt, wire frames, a smile ironed on. "Coffee," she said, not bothering to ask if I was free. At the cafe outside the gate, warm light, Texas mugs on a shelf, she slid a stack across the table. NDA on top in bold. 1 year's salary, civilian flight school slot, mentorship from 2 airlines. All you do is change one line, Drop suspected adverse reaction for unknown complication. No one digs. I skimmed the edge of the paper and remembered how the FDR doesn't lie had just sung its numeric hymn in that cold room. And if I don't, then I can't insulate you. You'll get tagged hard to work with. You know what your field hates most? People who break formation. She sipped, light dancing on her latte. I met her eyes. What you're asking breaks the first formation. There is the formation of the truth. She smiled with everything but her eyes. There are many truths. Sometimes the useful one is the right one. In my head, something clicked, a drawer locking, and I realized the key was in my pocket. I'm filing an IG complaint, I said, laying the sentence between us like a sidearm. For attempted interference in a flight report and for conflict of interest. Sloan stalled a beat, then collected the NDA like a dealer, pulling back a losing hand. You'll regret this, she said, voice dropping. The world isn't your post. Out there, your voice is small. It's mine, I said. And it's right. Back at the company office, I opened the Inspector General portal on the .mil machine. I climbed the form like stairs in the dark. Who interfered, what they said, where it happened, what evidence backs it. I attached photos of the torn label, the audio copy, the FDR reference, screenshots of the Helixara brochure, and that QR code to their compassionate use page. In the final additional narrative box, I typed flight medic reported suspected adverse reaction. External party attempted to influence wording. Safety and integrity at risk. Checked it twice. Breathed once. Hit submit. The confirmation popped up with a case number long as a tail boom. In the hall, I ran into Harper. He didn't ask what I'd done. He looked like a man who already knew. Sometimes the things that keep a bird in the sky, he said, are little buttons you push on the ground. My smile came out crooked. I just pressed one I can't unpress. Good, he said. Some buttons are designed that way. Late afternoon, Parker texted, received your addendum. Coordinating with IG, I buried myself in admin until the sun slid off the yellow safety stripe outside. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number, a photo of my taped up back, grounded but still crave the spotlight. Then watch your psych evolve. Then, they're saying you're unstable after the dust storm. The words landed like pebbles in my gut. I didn't reply. I forwarded everything to Parker with timestamps. That night, Brooks handed me a Ziploc. Same brochure as your aunt's. Found it by the ramp, somebody dropped it. See how they slapped a QR sticker over the logo? I rubbed the plastic, feeling the papers grit through it. On my desk sat the NDA Sloan forgot in her rush, one corner peeking out. I didn't sign it. I sealed it into an evidence envelope and added it to the handoff list. Meanwhile, on the unit group chat, a rumor poked its nose out like a rat. Someone's building drama to score waft. Somebody dropped a laugh emoji. I killed the phone and leaned into my locker, listening to the wall clock bite the air. The FDR doesn't lie. The audio doesn't lie. Bruises don't lie. People do. People know. And people choose. I thumbed the cold edge of my dog tags and shut my eyes. Tomorrow I'd have to wade through chatter while I stacked steps made of clean records and groundwork. But right now, with the AC thrumming, I could almost hear rotor wash far away, not a mission call. A promise, hold steady through the rumor swamp, and the sky will still be there, answering to its real name. Mornings on the flight line always start with tool carts rolling and the smell of over-roasted coffee. I thumbed the time clock dry little beep and collected a stack of forms from the office. Grounded doesn't mean idle. Crack open the med bags, count gauze, update the drug list. Everything still needs hands that have shaken inside a MEDEVAC cabin. I volunteered for the long shifts and the jobs nobody wanted. Scrub the cold box, audit expirations, write it all down like I was laying bricks to rebuild myself. Rumors scratched along behind me, half jokes, half smirks. I let them blow through like a draft and held tight to the numbers. Harper stopped by and set a stiff envelope on my table. Draft letter of recommendation for your waft packet, he said. Mark anything I missed. Inside were short, clean lines: discipline, calm in the dust storm, patient before self. No purple. Just checklist language, the way he writes and the way I breathe. Heat climbed my throat and cooled quick. Thank you, sir, I rasped. I won't make you regret this letter. His smile was pencil thin. It only fails if you stop being yourself. On the planning room whiteboard, I carved out a corner, sticky notes for every case that touched that drug, only what was in official reports, no guessing. I linked them with a dry erase pen, dates, symptoms, interventions. A faint pattern showed up like a night flight path: rapid hypotension, arrhythmia, cold sweat, and compassionate access popping up in local ER notes. I didn't call it proof, just a memory aid. First sergeant drifted by, paused. "You overwrite anybody's schedule with that, Marshal?" He squinted, then read my tiny header: clinical hints, internal only. "Keep it inside the lines," he said, "and good initiative." Near noon, Brooks ambled over with a wrinkled brown envelope. "I know you hate luck, but sometimes the ramp gifts us," he said. Inside, a blurry photo of the Storm Knight's syringe, twin helix logo clearer than I remembered. "Snapped it right before I bagged it," he admitted, rubbing his cheek like a kid who just learned to tie a tie. "Maybe it's nothing. File it anyway." I held the photo and felt my heartbeat settle like a monitor finding rhythm. "It's something," I said. "It's the first puzzle piece we shot ourselves. The rumor mill didn't take lunch." In the group chat, someone posted a meme about keyboard heroes, slapped a little airplane next to WAF ticket. I closed the phone and read my inventory checklist again. I gave myself new rules: no med bag expires on my watch. No dull shears live past a day. No duty shift leaves missing anything that could keep a pulse going. That afternoon, First Sergeant waved me into his office. "I'm hearing unstable after the incident," he said, blunt as a joint reset. "I'm sending you back to Lopez to tune that noise out. Tracking?" I nodded, grateful for the straight line. Sometimes the only way to shut a rumor door is to pull it wide and let the light in. Lopez worked fast. Right questions, quick reflex checks, notes clean. "No indicators of instability," she said. "Grounded for the back, but psychologically fit. Marking you fit for duty, non-flight. And don't let this paper tell you who you are. It's just paper." I took the result like a legal shield. That evening, Harper called me into an empty hangar, the bird sitting there like a big animal sleeping with its wings tucked. He handed over the signed LOR. "I added the airway management under turbulence," he said. "If the board asks why you want to fly, answer with what they can't argue: professional ethics." I slid the letter into my inner pocket like a map. At the threshold, warm wind pushed a calm, metallic smell across the concrete, and I heard myself say, "I'm not chasing waft as an exit ramp. I'm going because I was built to keep an aircraft straight." Harper narrowed his eyes and nodded like he'd just checked the wind. Next day, I asked for dirty work: scrub, the O2 locker, check valves, degrease tool drawers. A nail snapped and my finger bled. I taped it with medical cloth and laughed to myself at the stupid sting. Some afternoons are long, not for the labor, but the silence, the way people look and don't speak. The way chairs notice your back isn't carrying the medic pack. I filled the silence with pen on paper, swapping out old syringes, lining up numbers until they behaved. At the board, I added a sticky Harper LOR submitted. Under it, Lopez psych fit non-flight. I ran arrows like a wiring diagram, trying to see where the circuit broke. A brand new private peeked around the door. "What's all that?" "A map," I said. "So we don't get lost in the noise." He nodded, painfully earnest. "Ma'am, some folks say you're, like, stirring stuff to get waft." I gave him a tired grin. "People like simple stories. Aircraft don't fly on stories. They fly on data." Near dusk, Brooks pulled me onto the apron and pointed at an oil shimmer that had curled into a neat arc. "Look, that curve matches the patient's heart rate curve in the FDR. Looks like a question mark." I stared at it and realized that question mark had been hovering over my head for days. Can I hold up if this fight drags on? If every step comes with a hiss? I didn't have a perfect answer, just a chain of small actions repeated like adjusting mirrors before takeoff. What if they make you choose between flying and keeping quiet? Brooks tested. I shrugged. Then I fly toward the truth. He smiled, light as tapping one last nail into a frame. Night back at the barracks, I spread everything out. Syringe photo, lore, Lopez's eval, the fully updated med supply list. I shot pictures of each and dropped them into a locked folder. Not because I'm paranoid about theft, because I need reminding that some things have left mouths and become matter. On the mirror's edge, I stuck a tiny square. The FDR doesn't lie. In the glass, my face the face of someone who just walked through a storm with no sand, only words. Outside, the runway went dark like a dry river. Far off, a trainer spun up for night ops. The thrum folded into my calm pulse. Tomorrow will be burnt coffee, forms, the cold box, more sticky notes. Tomorrow, I'll keep cleaning anything inside arm's reach so that when the wind shifts, I'm ready to slip into the harness, listen to the rotor spool, and let the sky answer the rumors for me. Helixara's headquarters rose like a blue glass kiln off a slab of sun-baked concrete. The lobby smelled faintly of licorice. The fake ficus didn't have a speck of dust. I cleared security with a thin document, pouch thin, but it pulled at my shoulder like an anchor. The IG case number printed in block font, a sealed FDR extract, the intercom audio, Brooks's syringe photo with the twin helix logo, the shiny brochure with a QR code to compassionate access, Aunt Me's old email, and my signed waft recommendation. I kept everything in a clear sleeve on purpose. We were going to talk through glass today. Upstairs, floor-to-ceiling windows poured sunlight across a long table. Sloane waited beside a woman in a black suit whose eyes were neat as safety pins. Vivian Cross. 3 waters sat pre-poured like a baptism ritual. "Thanks for coming," Sloane said in her lullaby PR tone. "Today's just to close out some misunderstandings." Misunderstandings rolled across the tabletop like a hollow marble. I set my pouch down. Vivian slid a color-tabbed packet toward me. NDA, relocation package, educational grant. The italic type was as soothing as a hotel robe. "We all want what's best for patients," she said, warm as a weighted blanket, "and for your career." The window glass reflected my hands as I opened the pouch, laying items out one by one. IG case number first. FDR next, seal signed by CID. Audio a copy. Syringe photo logo plain as day. Silver brochure with the QR that jumps to a frictionless page. Aunt Me's vintage email about a crash years ago. Finally, the waft letter. I lined them up like a short flight plan. "Let's keep this on a flat surface," I said. "Nothing falls through the cracks." Sloane drew a breath like she'd touched a knife edge. Vivian didn't miss a beat. "We're not saying the FDR is wrong. We're concerned your wording might imply causation without adequate data. Suspected adverse reaction is heavy." I nodded. "That's exactly why I wrote suspected, not confirmed. Unknown turns a fact into fog." Vivian cocked her head and switched plays. "Would you consider middle ground? Something like, complication observed, further evaluation pending." I looked through the glass at the freeway below, traffic moving like blood. I considered it. I filed what the job requires. Sloane laced her fingers, voice shrinking. "You're pushing yourself out of the sky." I tried on a smile. "The sky doesn't belong to anyone." Her eyes flickered. "The moment you realize your prepped lines don't work here." Vivian tapped a manicured nail on wood. "I admire your principles. But realistically, if you sign the NDA, we guarantee you a smooth path. No one wants to be a test case at a state board hearing. Those rooms get loud." I slid my chair closer, the leg squeaking. "Noise is good," I said. "Noise means something's alive." Vivian smiled and nodded to the door. An assistant glided in with a wafer-thin folder. On top, talking points, PR field notes like no evidence of causation. Emphasize compassionate program for end-stage patients. Focus on hope narrative. I skimmed and felt a chill of recognition. I'd heard some of these exact phrases the night of the storm, out of my sister's mouth. "You've been borrowing the company's lungs to talk to me," I asked Sloane under my breath. She didn't answer. Vivian cut in. "PR keeps the public calm. You, of all people, understand panic kills as fast as side effects." My phone buzzed. No sender. Blank subject. 1.ml attachment. I caught the ghost of a Helixara watermark as it opened an internal chain titled Label Language Revision for Event Reporting. A manager wrote, "Recommend changing adverse to unexpected in internal tracking to reduce the reporting signal." Another replied, "Focus grouped public less anxious reading unexpected." The last line was bare and ugly. "Avoid triggering board review." The room temperature dropped a degree. In the doorway, a junior staffer with a dab of concealer over a chin breakout glanced up, then away, like she'd never been there. I set the phone face up in the center of the table. Vivian flicked her eyes down, expression neutral but mouth tightening. Internal language discussions happen everywhere, she said, half a key lower. Same as you choosing your phrasing. Difference is, I said, my report is for patient safety. That memo is for dodging the board. Silence stretched. Traffic flowed. Clouds thinned like smoke. I gathered my documents and parked the NDA off to the side like a loaded toy. I'm not signing, I said, and I'm forwarding this email to the IG. Sloane closed her eyes once, opened them on a face where something had fallen in without enough sound to warn anyone. Vivian stood, collecting tabs like withdrawing troops. Then we'll meet where it's loud, she said, smile never touching her eyes. In the elevator, Sloane and I rode down like strangers. At the doors, she put a cool hand on my sleeve with plier pressure. If this explodes, she said, don't call me. If this explodes, I said, call your lawyer. I turned before I had to watch her face fold. The parking lot burned. I cranked the AC and sent the leaked email to Parker and the IJ with a note internal label change discussion affecting reporting signal. A minute later, Parker pinged back received. Initiating hold notice for documents. Prepare for possible board hearing. I let my head fall against the rest and closed my eyes. The phone buzzed again, a public notice from the State Board of Pharmacy opening a hearing on Helixara's compassionate access safety, seeking frontline witnesses. Below it, an invite with my name in bold. Seeing those letters felt like writing myself onto the map for the first time. Back on post, Harper stood at the flight line edge, his shadow touching the main gear like a painted centerline. I handed him the invite. He nodded like he'd just been handed a new flight plan. Good, he said. Right course. In there, don't testify like a victim. Testify like crew events, numbers, outcomes. And ethics, I added. And ethics, he said, flipping the mental switch that powers the panel lights. That night, Brooks texted a group chat screenshot. The laugh emojis were dying off, replaced by the board hearing link. The last comment read, maybe we misjudged this. I stared at it and didn't feel triumph or revenge, just a rock sliding off my shoulder. On my desk, the IG case number sat long and ugly but trustworthy as coordinates. I pulled a pen and added a sticky next to the FDR doesn't lie. Board date build checklist. The AC hummed. Outside, the city glowed low and orange. I tied the pouch shut the way you cinch a harness before liftoff. Tomorrow the sky would be loud. I was ready to speak that way, intercom clear, no flourish. No deal words, just vectoring the aircraft through the storm. The hearing room felt like a walk in freezer chairs in parade rows, black microphones standing sentry. The state flag hung crisp against the wall, that exact blue that reminds you. The sky never promised anyone anything. I sat in the witness line with a paper cup and my statement packet, my name bold across the top. From the back row, Parker gave me the checklist, not drama look. Harper took an aisle seat. I watched his fingers open close like he was trimming a collective on the memory of last week. The gavel tapped. To my left, Helixara's table, Vivian Cross, calibrating her mic, Sloane upright, hands laced like she was praying for rain. They called my name. When I stood, the snap of my boots on tile reminded me there was still something solid underfoot. I ran the dust storm night like a takeoff/landing checklist weather. Souls on board, interventions, the second vitals tanked, the exact words I transmitted. An independent expert asked to play the intercom audio. Rotor wash filled the room, my voice followed possible drug reaction. BP dropping, then Harper, calm, prepare for emergency landing. Nobody breathed loud. I submitted the FDR extract. A hypotension curve, climbed the projector, a cold carving on stone. Major Lopez added 30 clean seconds on my harness bruise, and why random fall didn't fit. Vivian rose, voice plush as a thick rug. Specialist Marshall, can you confirm you're not a physician and therefore can't determine causality between the drug and the crash in vitals? Correct, I said, which is why I used suspected. I report sequence and symptoms. I don't issue medical verdicts. She pivoted. Do you harbor bias against my client due to a family dispute? I harbor bias against false reports, I said. Whoever writes them. A ripple of whisper cut across the room and died fast. The panel turned to Helixara's Compassionate Access Program. They projected the silver brochure with the QR code to a frictionless info page. The Independent asked why minimum clinical data was absent and what the event tracking procedure was. The company answered in prim PR hope, opportunity, balance. The chair asked about a leaked email thread and the phrase reduce the reporting signal. Vivian smiled professionally. That's a risk communication term. The expert lifted a second printout and read slowly, avoid triggering board review. The line hit like a cotter pin dropping. Sloane flinched. Her bracelet kissed the tabletop. Then Sloane took the stand. At first it was the voice I'd heard all my life: public interest, social responsibility, hope narratives. But when the chair asked if she'd urged me to change suspected to unknown, her lashes beat faster. I asked Erin to reconsider wording to avoid misunderstanding, she said, fingers whitening. Why? Because I was tasked with protecting the program's image. By whom? The moment stretched like cable between bridge towers. The executive team, she said, small, and me. I believed wording was just a technical choice. It fell out of her like a confession from someone who'd brushed the wrong switch. Vivian tried to cut. The chair waved it on. Do you acknowledge your action could compromise patient safety and the integrity of reports? Sloane looked at me. For half a second, I didn't see a PR director. I saw a 17-year-old girl under strobe flashes reaching for a frame that wouldn't make room. I do, she said, voice fractured. I was told to lower the signal. I thought I was smoothing edges. I was wrong. The room forgot how to inhale. Somewhere, a board member's pen stopped moving. The AG liaison segment was quick and sharp. They ordered Helixara to explain any internal language changes, data retention, and staff training, then issued a document hold immediately. Vivian nodded with textbook poise, but the paper under her hand had already curled like a moth's wing against a bulb. Parker texted my phone, hold notice served. Parallel civil/criminal review next. I thumbed back a single emoji and anchor. At recess, I stepped into a glassy corridor where everyone moved like film in slow motion. Sloane stood in a blind corner, eyes red from fatigue more than tears. Erin, she said, barely there. I stopped, kept a workable distance. I'm sorry, 2 ordinary words, but they pulled a tiny nail from someplace in my chest I'd forgotten. They told me if I didn't deliver, they'd burn me, she added, breath catching like she'd sprinted a hill. That doesn't make it right, I nodded. No. But it explains the shape. We stood in it. Afternoon light shifted. I can't promise quick forgiveness, I said. Don't be quick, she answered. Be true. Back inside, the board delivered a preliminary call: suspend Helixara's Compassionate Access Program pending review and refer parts of the record to the Attorney General for potential violations of reporting law. The chair glanced my way. Specialist Marshall, thank you for your integrity. You prioritize safety over pressure. I just nodded. Compliments land like parachutes, pretty, but what keeps you aloft is still the rotor. On the steps outside, Harper waited. He handed me a thin envelope, smiling rare enough to squint. Hand off from a friend, he said. Waft acceptance. The embossed seal flashed hard in the sun. I read it like final items on a pre-takeoff card: report date, muster point, packing list. Street heat slid under my collar. Paper smelled like fresh toner and dust. Somewhere Brooks whistled the wrong tune for a government building, and it fit perfectly. Sloane passed, paused just long enough. Her eyes dropped to the envelope. She managed a tired smile. Fly high. Fly true, I said. She nodded. Like she understood it was the only way I planned to touch sky. Vivian followed, pretending not to hear. Her eyes had the dim of glass when storm clouds shoulder in. Dusk on post came down like bent steel. At my office door, Parker met me with a receipt: IG supplement logged, AG letters out. Road's long, he said, but law talks from here. And my part, I asked. Keep it clean, he said. Clean records, clean hours, clean intent. In my room, I propped the waft letter beside the sticky that reads: the FDR doesn't lie. Between them is a distance shorter than a roll of tape, and long as a year of burnt coffee and words spoken with a shaking jaw. I texted Aunt Mee a photo. She sent back hearts and fly by truth, honey. I wiped my safety glasses, the ones fogged, from scrubbing the O2 locker and watched the runway go black, a ribbon waiting for whoever has the nerve to flip a switch. Night pooled. A text from an unknown number, probably my ghost whistleblower, pinged once. Thank you for speaking plainly. I thumbed back, thank you for not letting the truth fly alone. No reply. I killed the light and lay down, back still twinging like a memory that won't scar over. Beneath the ache another rhythm held steady, even the phantom spin of rotor above my head, telling me tomorrow I climb one more rung. Not the ladder of clout, the ladder a soldier uses to keep the aircraft and her conscience in the same sky. On my last day with the unit, I rolled up a frayed elastic wrap and set it in the gearbox like stowing a charm that had done its job. The locker emptied by inches. The metal door boomed shut hollow. The way a helicopter feels the split second. It leaves the runway no longer on the ground, not yet in the sky. Brooks shuffled in, hugging a carton scrawled in Sharpie, Marshall junk, but important. He set it down and produced a ridiculous gift, a hand-drawn syringe label in marker with FDR doesn't lie scribbled under it. I laughed so hard my eyes stung. Souvenir, he said, playing it cool. Next time someone says unknown, wave this thing. I pulled him into a hard hug. People like us say thank you shoulder to shoulder. Harper waited out on the flight line. On a folding table, he'd laid a handwritten checklist, not for flying, for living at flight school. Sleep enough. Take notes. Pick teammates better than you. Ask when you don't know. Say copy only when you actually copy. Waft will sand you down, he said, same way desert wind sands the nose of a bird. If you keep your core, the paint is just paint. I nodded. What's the core? The thing that got you here, he said, tapping the sticky note tucked behind my name tape. The FDR doesn't lie. Before I left post, I stopped at the clinic. Major Lopez signed the final page of my transfer. Back's good, she said. Keep the core work, and don't let anyone teach you how to be quiet in professional language. She pressed a small leather notebook into my hand. On the first page, in her block print, write like a medic, fly like a witness. I closed it, the line stitching up a tear that hadn't fully closed. In the afternoon, Aunt Amy met me at the gate and drove to the little church at the end of town, pews that always creak, stained glass pouring October blue. She lit one candle, asked for nothing grand, only murmured, go out clean, come back whole. I set the waft letter on my knees and listened to wind thread the doorway, resin and road dust riding it. Some answers don't need words, they just need an older hand laid over yours like a quiet benediction. Late, Sloan texted, can we talk? I picked a sandwich shop that stays open too long and belongs to nobody. She took off her glasses, eyes so unguarded I could see my reflection in them. A woman soldier headed to flight school, still carrying a few old bruises. I talked to counsel, she said. I'll cooperate. Not to be some anti-hero, I'm just tired. I nodded, chewing slow on butter garlic bread that tasted strange and right. What about us? She exhaled. We'll have to walk a long bridge with no handrail. But I'll walk. I tapped my water against her glass. No grand promises, only a clink like two stones, remembering they came from the same river. Report day hit like a helicopter dropping to a pad. The intake center buzzed, boot steps mixing with the clatter of hard cases. I drew a new name tape, a new flight suit, a ball cap that still smelled like factory dye. First block sim time, dark room, screens wrapped around, seat shivering with the script. Crosswind takeoff and landing, collective smooth as pouring water. My hand fell on the lever, and a familiar current ran palm to shoulder like a trusted line. Rain sheeted across the display, and I heard myself whisper, keep the airway, keep the axis, keep the truth. The sim growled and obeyed like a big animal that knows your voice. That night in the barracks, I opened Lopez's notebook. On a fresh page, I wrote the header, peer support and safety draft. The idea is simple, a small, inside-the-fence program for students and future crews, where you can report near misses and pressure without getting branded, where the quietest voice has an official path, where word-swapping emails don't survive. I sketched the Bones anonymous intake, a coordinator team of instructors and students, monthly talks, an internal hotline staffed by a medic. I penciled a name Project Rotor, then erased it, and wrote Project FDR, because the black box doesn't lie and we shouldn't teach each other to. Next day, I briefed the student OIC. He listened, drummed a pen. Good, he said. But remember, everything runs alongside existing regs. No one gets to live off the grid. What we do is make the system less alien. I nodded. A few emails, a couple quick hallway meets. By week's end, Project FDR had a thumbtacked corner on the bulletin board report. What should be heard, not what people want to read. A clumsy slogan in the right way, awkward enough to be true. On the PT pad, I hit core work like Lopez ordered. My back twinged now and then, a little panel light reminding me not to get cute. An instructor called, Marshall. Keep tempo! I counted breaths in my head, steady as rotor RPM finding the green. Sometimes my mind drifted to the cold hearing room, Vivian's composed face, the singed smell of leaked emails. Every time it did, I opened the notebook and added one more line to protect straight talk. That's how I clear the smoke, pull it through the system's fan, and turn it into a checklist. One Sunday afternoon, I ducked back into the same little church. Sloane was mid-pew, hands laced, no expensive watch. Remember that, Gayla? She asked as the blue glass laid soft color across her eyes. I do, I said. You nudged me out so the logo could sit dead center. Today, if I can, I want the logo to be truth. I smiled small, the way you nod to yourself in a cockpit. We didn't say forgiveness. We just walked out together, slow down the sidewalk, each holding an end of the story without tugging or letting go. The night before my first graded sim, I spread everything on the desk: the waft letter, Harper's life checklist, the Project FDR notebook. In the corner lay Brooks's hand-drawn label like a kid's exclamation point. I stuck it on the notebook cover. In the quiet, I saw the string of days behind me: dust storm, dropped syringe, twin helix logo, someone's unknown, my suspected, the board's gavel, the leaked emails, a handshake on the courthouse steps, the envelope with my orders, all of it braided into a spine I knew I could lean on when the wind shoved. Lights out, shade down. I texted Brooks sim tomorrow. If I bust, make a kind meme. He shot back instantly: memes ready, won't need it. I laughed into the dark. Somewhere out there, people still call me loud. Fine, aircraft need noise to prove they're alive. And me? I need the noise of truth to know I'm still on the right side. Morning, I slid into the sim, set my hand on the lever like laying it on an oath. Ready, the instructor said. Ready, I answered. The screens opened: a flat sky and a horizon stretched like a taut string. I raised the collective. In the breath where the machine left the ground, the line that carried me this far came back soft as wind, hard as steel. The FDR doesn't lie. I flew on that lift by skill, climb by discipline, hold axis by truth. The sky ahead promised nothing, but this: if I stayed straight, it would hold me. I smiled and nudged the nose up, watching the horizon slide across glass like a silent river, pulling me forward. Higher, but never so high, I lost sight of the ground where words had saved me.